NBA trios are more relevant today than ever, they've always been around. From Bill Russell dominating the league with Sam Jones and Tom Hinson, to LeBron James teaming up with several stars to create more than one all-star studded trio, the league has always been out teaming up. Once on the same team, that's when the fun really begins. How badly are those star players willing to sacrifice their own statistical numbers for the betterment of their team? For the most part, winning an NBA championship is the end goal. But just because it isn't accomplished, that doesn't mean a team won't make an appearance on this list. There are simply too many teams that carry 3 legitimate star players to categorize them as failures for not winning at all. We still, however, deduct a few points from it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the 6 best trios in NBA history. At number 6, we have Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Tony Kukoc. Jordan, 29.4 points per game, 6.1 rebounds, 4.1 assists. Pippen, 20.2 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, 5.6 assists. Tony, 13.9 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 4.2 assists. Finals record, 3-0. Time together, 1996 to 1998. Anything that has to do with the Chicago Bulls in the late 90s immediately revolved around Scottie Pippen, and of course, Michael Jordan. Once his airness decided to drop basketball and pick up baseball instead, Tony Kukoc came on board. The pressure that was placed on his shoulders was enormous. Dubbed as the second coming of Magic Johnson from Europe, Kukoc quickly proved that he belonged. He averaged 10.9 points in his first year in the league and followed that up by averaging 15.7. Once Jordan realized that hitting home runs was a far more difficult task than knocking down mid-range jumpers, he returned to the league. From there, no one stood a chance. If we left out that abbreviated short stint of when Jordan first came back during the 1994-95 season, the trio was unstoppable. While it was obvious that the bulk of the scoring was going to be done by Jordan and Pippen, Kukoc found a way to fit in nicely, as he was the third leading during all 3 of their championships together. They were the perfect complement to one another. Jordan was a mid-range assassin, Pippen continually placed defenders on posters when attacking the rim, and Kukoc oftentimes camped out behind the 3-point line and made it rain. Considering that the Bulls only lost a combined amount of games during the 3-year stretch and have 3 golden balls to show for it, their high placement on this list is an absolute no-brainer. At number 5, we have Bill Russell, Sam Jones, and Tom Hinson. Russell, 16.6 points per game, 23.7 rebounds. Hinson, 19 points per game, 8.7 rebounds. Jones, 16.2 points per game, 5.2 rebounds. Finals record, 7-1. Time together, 1958 to 1965. The Celtics of the 50s and 60s were unlike any other team in NBA history. No matter who stood on the opposite side of the court, more times than not, the Celtics were going to come out on top with the victory. The heart and soul of these teams was, of course, Bill Russell. Often referred to as the greatest Celtic of all time and one of the best centers ever, Russell only knew how to do one thing: win. Alongside his 2 other Hall of Fame teammates in Tom Hinson and Sam Jones, the Celtics ruled in the late 50s and certainly all of the 60s. No other trio in NBA history can boast of winning 7 titles as a group. They did let 1 title slip through their fingers, however, the first one they played as a group against the St. Louis Hawks in the 19th final. That would be the last time, and they lost on the game's biggest stage as they reeled off 7 straight. All 3 players were all-stars and all-NBA selection. TV screens may have been deprived of color when they played, but when they got on the court, the talent was obvious. At number 4, we have Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman. Jordan, 29.5 points per game, 6.1 rebounds, 48.2 field goal percentage. Pippen, 19.5 points per game, 6 rebounds, 5.8 assists. Rodman, 5.3 points per game, 15.3 rebounds. Finals record, 3-0. Time together, 1996 to 1998. The argument can be made that the second half of the Chicago Bulls dynasty was even better than the first. Of course, Michael Jordan is in the discussion for the greatest player of all time, and Scottie Pippen is an all-timer in his own right. In all fairness, considering how great both players were, almost anyone could have slotted into the 3rd slot. With that said, Dennis Rodman more than held his own. In 3 full seasons under the same roof, Pippen averaged a hair over 19 points per game and consistently locked up on the defensive side of the ball. Jordan was just as good defensively, but offensively, he was one of the greatest the game has ever seen. He averaged just under 30 points per game during that 3-year span. As for Rodman, scoring was never something he was interested in doing and particularly good at. The eccentric Hall of Famer never averaged more than 5.7 points per game during his time with the Bulls, but he led the league in rebounding for 3 straight years, averaging well over 14 during that span. The Bulls never won anything less than 62 games during that run, and recorded a 72-win season in 1996. Unlike Pippen and Jordan, who were all-stars, Rodman was never selected to any midseason classics, Jordan was also a 2-time MVP in 3 seasons. Both Jordan and Pippen were selected to the All-NBA and All-Defensive teams as well. Rodman, to his credit, was selected to one All-Defensive team during the time of the two stars. At number 3, we have Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Klay Thompson. Durant, 25.8 points per game, 7.1 rebounds, 52.4% field goal percentage. Curry, 26.3 points per game, 6 assists, 42.3 from 3-point range. Thompson, 21.3 points per game, 42.8 from 3-point range. Finals record 2-1. Time together, 2017 to 2019. Nothing is a guarantee in the NBA. Each and every year, several teams have a reasonable claim as to why they can ultimately win it all. With that said, the moment Kevin Durant decided to pack up his bags and leave OKC for the Golden State Warriors, winning a title became a formality. The Warriors were already a powerhouse long before Durant signed on the dotted line, but they went to an entirely different level once he came on board. Interestingly enough, the Warriors had a big three that consisted of Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry. But for the sake of this article, one of those players will have to be dropped in order to make room for Durant. For as much as we love Green and all the intangibles that he brings to the table, he was the odd man out. Although it didn't last entirely too long, the Warriors were simply unfair with Durant, Curry, Thompson, and their new teammate all averaged 20 points per game during those 3 seasons, with Durant and Curry clearing the 25 point per game mark. When the dust cleared on their time together, the Warriors ultimately did some historic things. Their average win percentage during the regular season was 73.9. The Warriors also managed to make 3 straight finals and pocketed 2 titles. Luckily for the rest of the league, the trio wouldn't stay together for more than 3 seasons. At number 2, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, and Derek Fisher. Shaquille O'Neal, 26.9 points per game, 11.8 rebounds, 2.4 blocks. Bryant, 21.5 points per game, 5 rebounds. Fisher, 7.7 points per game, finals record 3-1, time together 1996 to 2004. In terms of duos, there's arguably no one better than Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. O'Neal was a headliner. He averaged 26.9 points, 11.8 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks a night during their 8-year run. Outside the lockout-shortened 1998-1999 season, O'Neal was already selected to the All-Star team, and his placement on the All-NBA team at the end of the year was a virtual lock. Bryant, on the other hand, was the showstopper. Back then, Bryant wasn't as prolific as a scorer, at least early on. He went on to average 21.6 points in the first 8 seasons with O'Neal, but turned into Bryant we all grown to love as he spent the final 4 years of his career with O'Neal, averaging no less than 24 points a game. The offense ran through O'Neal first and Bryant a close second, but one player who doesn't get any love and attention is Derek Fisher. Admittedly, the numbers weren't very impressive as Fisher just averaged 7.7 points per game. Still, time and time again, Fisher bailed out the Lakers with clutch shots. He was never an All-Star or All-NBA player. Also, the mere notion of him in the MVP discussion is laughable, but Fisher came up clutch more times than not. In 8 seasons, excluding the lockout, the Lakers won at least 50 games every year. Twice during that stretch, they reached the 60-win mark. 4 finals appearances in 5 years, along with 3 straight titles, made the trio practically unstoppable. If they somehow found a way to resolve their differences, this group would have won even more titles. And finally, at number 1, we have Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker. Duncan, 17.7 points per game, 10.4 rebounds, 2.1 blocks. Parker, 17.1 points per game, 6 assists. Ginobili, 14 points per game, 4 assists. Finals record 3-1. Time spent together 2003 to 2016. For whatever reason, NBA trios that have accomplished some extraordinary things don't stick together for a long time. They often go their separate ways after a bit of success, leave fans wondering what could have been if they simply stuck together longer. In the case of the San Antonio Spurs, they bucked that trend entirely. For 14 years, the Spurs had the same 3 players anchor them night in and night out: Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker. Throughout their time together, the Spurs pumped out winning record after winning record. Not once did the Spurs miss the playoffs. They were also consistently rated amongst the league's best on the defensive side of the ball. As you've come to realize on the list, we've had trios that put up otherworldly numbers. These 3, on the other hand, were stellar but not spectacular. Duncan poured in 17.7 points a night, Parker chipped in with 17.1, and Ginobili, their 6th Superman, averaged 14 points per game. While they didn't have a 20-point scorer on average, no other trio in NBA history has won more games than the 575 that these 3 have managed to win together. Also, their win percentage during their run blew the competition away. By winning 71.6 of their regular season games, the Spurs were far and away better than the second best team on the list, the Dallas Mavericks, as they checked in with a win percentage of 64.3%. They combined for 4 titles and made over 20 All-Star games, and not to mention countless All-NBA teams. There were never any egos with any of them. Duncan started off as the team's best player and nabbed several MVP awards and Finals MVPs away. He had absolutely no issue passing the ball to Parker as he became the team's best player in the late 2000s. Ginobili was never considered the best player for the Spurs, but he was their unquestioned closer as the ball was often in his hands when things got tight. We can go on and on about how great these 3 were together, but to sum it all up, they're the best trio in NBA history. Well guys, Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to Tip Top Sports and ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching.